Hi there guys, and welcome to today's reading lesson. In this lesson we're going to be summarising about a topic of a paragraph. We're going to be summarising an extract from Peter Pan and Wendy by J.M. Barrie. First of all, let's look at the front cover. Why do you think the illustrator has used quite a dark colour with a gold lighting on it? So why do you think the illustrator, the person who draws and designs the covers and the pictures in a book, has used these colours, a very dark colour and a golden writing and gold on the images? Pause the video here whilst you think about this. Once you've thought about it, then record your answer down in your book. Pause the video here whilst you write down your thoughts. So the idea that I came up with was the illustrator might have used dark colours to represent the nighttime setting, and the gold might have been used to show the street lights, the moonlight, or maybe even perhaps the magic that is helping the characters to fly. Because if we think to the story of Peter Pan, Tinkerbell and Peter use fairy dust, don't they, or pixie dust, to help Wendy, Michael and John to fly. Let's look at some of the vocabulary that we're going to come across in this extract. Number one, she was rather prim and particular. What does the word prim mean? Number two, she changed their pinnies when they became too grubby. What do the words pinnies and grubby mean? Number three, he was very faddy about what the neighbours thought. What does the word faddy mean? Number four, it wasn't time yet for the evening romps and dances. What does the word romps mean? And finally, it might have giants who live in enchanted castles. What does the word enchanted mean? Now in your books, I would like you to write the subheading of Vocab Lab down and underline it, because it's a subheading. And then underneath, I would like you to define what each of the words that are highlighted in red mean. You can use the internet or a laptop or a computer or an iPad. You could use a dictionary if you wanted to. Or perhaps maybe you could use some of the adults around to help you to do this. Pause the video here whilst you find out what these mean. Okay, so prim means to show disapproval. So if you disapprove of something, that means that you don't agree with it, or you're a bit disgusted by it. A pinny is an apron. If it's grubby, it's dirty and filthy. Faddy is to take a disliking to, so you don't like it. Romps is rough play, and enchanted, magical. Let's now have a look at the extract, Peter Pan and Wendy. All children, except one, grow up. They soon know that they will grow up, and the way Wendy, Moira, Angela Darling knew was this. One day, when she was 2 years old, she was playing in a garden, and she ran to her mother with some flowers she had picked. And she looked so sweet, just like a little flower herself, that Mrs. Darling said, "Oh, why can't you stay like this forever?" Then Wendy began to see that one didn't stay at 2 for the rest of one's life. Instead, 2 is the beginning of the end. The end is being grown up. Once you get to 21 or so, you can never be ungrown up again. But Mrs. Darling did not tell this to Wendy. Between 2 and 21, there was lots of time for her to find out. Mrs. Darling was a perfect dear. Just the sort of mother one would choose, as sweet as honey, with lovely eyes and a mouth that looked like a kiss. It had got like that with kissing her children so often. There were 3 children, Wendy, John and Michael, and Mrs. Darling didn't know which she loved best. They were all pretty good, but Wendy was the best, because she tried to make herself as like her mother as she could be. It wasn't easy, of course, but she still tried. The 3 little darlings had a very nice nursery with lots of toys and picture books. Also a night nursery with 3 little beds in it. and they had the most uncommon kind of nurse. She was called Nana, like other nurses, but she was really a large Newfoundland dog. Her kennel was in the nursery so that she could keep an eye on the children at all time. She was rather prim and particular and would have everything just so, but she was splendid at games and would join in the wildest romps. In fact, she was a real treasure. She bathed and dressed the children. She saw that they got up and went to bed in proper time. Oh, I tell you, she wouldn't stand for any nonsense. She gave them their medicine when it was wanted, changed their pennies when they became too grubby, and took them to the kindergarten and back every day carrying an umbrella if it looked like rain. The only person at number 14, this was the Darling's house, who did not much care for Nana, was Mr. Darling, the father of Wendy, John and Michael. He was very faddy about what the neighbours thought, and he felt that they must certainly think it extremely odd to have a dog for a nurse. So Nana was never allowed to appear in the drawing room, and if visitors came, she was shut up in the nursery whilst the door was opened by the tiny little maidservant, Lisa. Everybody knew that Mr. Darling was not best friends with Nana, but everybody pretended not to know. It was a pity he was so against her. However, the children had other things to take up their minds. When the kindergarten part of the day was over and it wasn't time yet for the evening romps and dances, they talked to each other about the Netherland. One could go on doing that for hours. The Neverland was a make-believe island full of delightful places and interesting people. It is very hard to describe because an island of that sort changes about from day to day according to how you want it to be. It might be all over fairies, dwarves and goblins, or it might have giants who lived in enchanted castles, and princes, always the youngest of three, who go and attack them. Or it might have a robber's cave and a tumble-down cottage where a witch makes magic. There could be pirates there too, and all sorts of ships. That's where an island comes in so useful, and coral reefs and underground rivers. There is no end to the wonderful things in Neverland. So let's have a look at the quiz. This will need to be completed in your books. So write the subheading of quiz and underline it. And then use the text to help answer these 5 questions. First of all, how old was Wendy when she was picking flowers in the garden? What age did Wendy think you can't be ungrown up? What were the 3 children's names? Who was the children's nurse? And what did Mr. Darling think of the nurse? Pause the video here whilst you complete this quiz. Okay, so the answer to number 1 was that she was 2 years old when she picked the flowers. Wendy thought that you could not be ungrown up when you were 21 years old or older. The 3 children's names were Wendy, Michael and John. The nurse was Nana. And finally, Mr. Darling did not like Nana as he thought the neighbours would find it strange to have a dog as a nurse. Now let's have a look at some of the tasks. So Mrs. Darling says to Wendy, "Oh, why can't you stay like this forever?" What does she mean by this? So what is meant by Mrs. Darling saying to Wendy, "Oh, why can't you stay like this forever?" And then to challenge yourself as a stretch. What evidence is there in the text to show this? So in your books, write the answer to this. If you're doing the stretch, you just need to find it in the text. Pause the video here whilst you do this. So she thinks that Wendy is really sweet, cute and very childlike because she brings her flowers that she picked, like a present. The evidence in the text to show this is on this line where it says, "And she looks so sweet, just like a little flower herself." Let's look at the next question. What makes Neverland so wonderful? And again, to stretch and challenge yourself, What evidence is there in the text to show this? Pause the video here whilst you answer this question in your books. If you're stretching yourself, you just need to find the evidence in the text. So Neverland is a make-believe island that has lots of wonderful things. It was hard to describe, and there were lots of lovely places in it. The evidence in the text, though, are the fact that it uses the words delightful places and interesting people. It says that it's hard to describe because it's that sort of island that changes from day to day, and according to how you wanted it. So you might find that there were enchanted castles or fairies in there. So there was lots of evidence in the text to show why it was such a wonderful place. And the fact that the word wonderful is used many times to describe this shows this. Okay. In your books, I'd like you to write the word task as a subheading and underline it. Then, which of these statements would you pick to summarise the text the most accurately? Now I know it says to tick one, but in your books, I would like you to write out the statement that you think summarises the text the most accurately. If you'll challenge yourself, look at the last paragraph of the text and summarise the paragraph in just one sentence. What is the topic? What's it all about? Pause the video here whilst you complete the task and stretch yourself. So the statement that you should have chosen was the third one, that Mrs. Darling doesn't want Wendy to grow older, because she looks sweet like a flower. This is shown in the first page of the extract, the first part. And then as the stretch, in the last paragraph, the children, Wendy, Michael and John, use their imagination to create an island called Neverland, which they talk about at the end of kindergarten. So, as you can see in my sentence, I've talked about who, and that's the children, Wendy, Michael and John. I've told the reader what they were doing. They used their imagination to create an island called Neverland. And then finally, why did they do it? Because they want to talk about it at the end of kindergarten. To end the lesson, let's think. What key components make up a summary? Now normally there are 5 of them. 5 key words that help us to summarise a text. What are they? Okay, so you'd have had who, what, where, when and why. You might have even had how as the final one. So the next thing to think about is, should a summary be lengthy and filled with lots of detail? Well, if you're unsure, think to the stretch that was shown on the previous slide. Did it ask for lots of detail? Did it ask for a paragraph? So remember that a summary should not be lengthy. It shouldn't be filled with lots of unnecessary detail. It should be filled with the most important parts that are needed from the text. And we can identify these with those 5 W's. As you saw on the stretch in the previous slide, and as you saw on the task, a summary can be done in 1 sentence if needed. Now that you've reached the end of this lesson, well done. Make sure that you've uploaded your work onto Teams. So in your book you should have a minimum of the vocab lab, the quiz and the task. You can do this by taking a picture, or if you've done it on the computer, then saving it and uploading it through the files. Thanks very much guys, and Mr. Aurora and I look forward to giving you feedback on your reading. Until next time, see you later.